Live from Washington, D.C., Sekulow Live. Phone lines are open for your questions right now. And now, Chief Counsel for the American Center for Law and Justice, Sekulow.
Welcome to the special broadcast, everyone. This is a two-part special that we've done on the state of Israel. The issue, it's called BDS, Boycott, Divest, and Sanction. It's an attempt by anti-Israel groups to delegitimize the state of Israel. This is a big campaign. It's taking place on academic campuses throughout the world, including in the United States of America. It's taking place with businesses throughout the world. If you do business with Israel, some of these groups will come after you and say, we will never buy your products. Do not do business with the Jewish state. If you invite Israeli academics to your college campus, they will either be protested or demands that they not be allowed to participate. If you're a Jewish student or a Christian student speaking up in favor of Israel, you too are subject to action by these BDS groups. We have formed a special unit inside the ACLJ to deal with this issue on a global basis. And we had a unique opportunity as the United Nations hosted through the Israeli embassy to the United Nations, called the Permanent Mission to the UN by the Israelis. The event at the UN was hosted by the ambassador to the United Nations from Israel, Ambassador Danny Danon. We also had the opportunity to have present and to speak to the group, the vice chairman of the Israeli Supreme Court, Justice Rubinstein. Let's go inside the UN.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the General Assembly of the United Nations. My friends, look around you. This is a historical moment here in the United Nations. Never before have so many people from so many places gathered here in this chamber, in the General Assembly, to declare the unanimous support for the State of Israel. Never before have students, professionals, and pro-Israel activists come to the United Nations to fight against the global movement to demonize Israel and to speak with one solid voice in defense of the Jewish state. On behalf of the State of Israel, on behalf of the Israeli mission to the UN, thank you for coming from near and from far to be a part of history. Let me thank all those organizations who made this historic event possible. Today, we stand together. We stand united with one purpose and one goal: to defeat BDS.
We do believe that the UN is an important organization, still hoping that its policies will become more balanced. In this regard, not only does Israel fully continue our participation in many UN activities, which we cherish, but we also make our share in the UN organs in areas such as science, medicine, agriculture, as these constitute an important contribution to the world well-being, and it's in the best of Jewish tradition. I would like to commend our Ambassador Danny Danon, together with the World Jewish Congress and Ambassador Lauder, for the initiative to convene this important gathering here, together with all other organizations who have participated. And thank you all for being here, in particular young people. Thank you for caring.
As Justice Rubinstein said, it's important for these young people, these students, to feel like they have a place to go, someone to defend them. And that's what we're doing at the ACLJ. You can become part of that team. We have a Defend Israel petition up at aclj.org. We have over 130,000 signatures already on it. I want to eventually get this to 200,000. So if you'll go to aclj.org or call us at 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255 or aclj.org. Sign that petition to stand with Israel, to defend Israel. We'll be back with more in just a moment.
It was a tremendous success. ACLJ Chief Counsel Jay Sekulow and our legal and legislative teams standing up for Israel at the United Nations. A very big thank you to the more than 125,000 people who signed on to our petition of support. You made it possible. Now, the real work begins. We laid out our strategy at the UN General Assembly, and now we're working around the globe to counter a vicious anti-Israel campaign designed to delegitimize Israel, to eliminate the State of Israel. You can stand with us during this critical time. Add your name to our petition of support for Israel right now. We will be updating the Israeli ambassador to the UN, keeping him informed about the growing support for Israel. Call now 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255, or you can add your name online, aclj.org.
Welcome back to the broadcast, everyone. We're going to go inside the United Nations General Assembly. Thousands were in attendance. I was privileged to give a speech on behalf of the State of Israel, really a defense for the State of Israel. Let's go inside the UN. I'm going to take you inside the UN General Assembly to participate in this speech.
Now, divestment resolutions have poisoned over 50 college campuses, and dorm rooms have swastikas painted on them. BDS has led a campaign of fear and intimidation, targeting Jewish and pro-Israel students and shutting down debates in colleges and universities. The American Center for Law and Justice is leading the fight against BDS in the legal arena, standing up for freedom of expression and against discrimination on U.S. campuses and beyond. Please welcome the Chief Counsel of the American Center for Law and Justice, a best-selling author and a distinguished Supreme Court advocate, Dr. Jay Sekulow.
It's a pleasure and an honor to be with you. You saw the video. You saw what goes on in the campuses. Mr. Ambassador, Your Excellency, Justice Rubinstein, Justice Amit, Ambassador Lauder, friends, what you saw in that video taking place on America's college campuses is unacceptable. It is unacceptable. It is unacceptable in a country governed by a constitution. It is unacceptable as a matter of law. I'm before you today, and it's a humbling experience for me. My grandfather, Shmuel Sekulow, traveled from Russia in 1914 aboard a boat that took him past the Statue of Liberty. He was a fruit peddler in Brooklyn, New York. His grandson, me, I get to argue cases at the Supreme Court of the United States, in international tribunals, and now appear before you. It is humbling. But the task that we have before us is great, and we have no time for delay. In one of my very first Supreme Court arguments, one of the legal journals said I was rude, aggressive, and obnoxious. That's what my mother did too. She applauded at that. We won that case unanimously. And in 2009, we opened our permanent office in Jerusalem. 1 year later, I found myself before the International Criminal Court in The Hague, the ICC. The Palestinian Authority, much like the BDS movement of today, sought to utilize an international tribunal for one purpose, and one purpose only: to delegitimize the Jewish state of Israel. I argued the law, and the law was clear. The Palestinian Authority was not a state. It had no business being before the ICC, and the case must be dismissed. 2 years later, that law was established, and the court did dismiss that action. That's a victory, but the fact of the matter is, BDS is the flip side of that same coin. We call it lawfare, utilizing the legal system to delegitimize a people or a group. Now, this is an ongoing battle. At the ACLJ, along with our partner organizations, we put forward a four-part strategy. First, expose the true nature of the BDS movement for what it is. And make no mistake about it, it is not a civil rights movement. It is a movement with one aim and one aim only. It is a long-term project created by anti-Israel and anti-Jewish activists that is designed with one purpose: to delegitimize and destroy the state of Israel, to delegitimize the Jewish people, to delegitimize those non-Jewish people that stand with Israel. This is the agenda. They cloak it in the garb of the civil rights movement. This is no civil rights movement. This is an unconstitutional and illegal advocacy taking place in the United States of America. Make no mistake, the goal is unambiguous. The intent is clear. It is to create an environment so hostile that those students of you that are here today would be afraid to say the word, "I am a Zionist. I am a Jew." Never, never, on the memory of our families, should we allow that to take place, and the least in the United States of America. In the past year, ACLJ lawyers have briefed 30 state legislatures on passing laws specifically to protect students, businesses, and others from this boycott, divest, and sanction scheme. We believe that this year we will see that legislation passed in a number of states. I want to talk about the legal issues. You know, I make my living practicing law. I have represented a variety of groups around the globe. We have offices in Strasbourg, France, Jerusalem, 2 in Africa, in Moscow. But in the United States of America, we are seeing right now a marked upswing on college campuses and universities, this targeted BDS. And it comes in multiple forms. It is sometimes aimed at a student who merely speaks out, exercises his or her free speech right. One of those students from Loyola University is with us today. She's brave. She's a hero. She stood up for her people, and she did it at her college. And she was the one brought up on charges. Now hear me. She exercised free speech rights, was non-disruptive, was being harassed by the BDS proponents at Loyola University in Chicago. She spoke out for her rights, and she was being prosecuted by the college. That student, Talia Neiman, is here today. I'd like her to stand up, please, for a moment. We had the privilege and honor to work with her, to put the college, the university on notice that you better read your own rules. You better read your own regulations. You better read your own accrediting agency's principles, because it does not allow targeted discrimination because someone is Jewish or pro-Israel. And that fact, by the way, got Loyola to back down. That's some good news. But let me take it a step further. It is not just students. There are professors. We are handling a number of those right now. Some of those professors are Israeli. Most of them are Americans. Most of them, but not all of them, are Jewish. They have stood up for their rights as well. I'd like to recognize another professor that we successfully represented, who stood for his principles, spoke out on behalf of the state of Israel, was going to be sanctioned, is no longer being sanctioned. Professor Andrew Pessin is here as well. I'd like, Professor. He's in the back. Thank you, Professor, for taking the stand you did.
Students, academics, and America's public school campuses, public university campuses need our help. The ACLJ is front and center on this. I want to encourage you to stand with us. As you stand with Talia, as you stand with the professor for standing up for Israel. You could join us right now at aclj.org. Sign that petition to defend Israel or call us at 1-877-989-2255. That's aclj.org or 1-877-989-2255. I'm going to encourage you to take a stand for Israel.
It was a tremendous success. ACLJ Chief Counsel Jay Sekulow and our legal and legislative teams standing up for Israel at the United Nations. A very big thank you to the more than 125,000 people who signed on to our petition of support. You made it possible. Now, the real work begins. We laid out our strategy at the UN General Assembly, and now we're working around the globe to counter a vicious anti-Israel campaign designed to delegitimize Israel, to eliminate the state of Israel. You can stand with us during this critical time. Add your name to our petition of support for Israel right now. We will be updating the Israeli ambassador to the UN, keeping him informed about the growing support for Israel. Call now, 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255, or you can add your name online, aclj.org.
Welcome back to the broadcast, everyone. You saw the student, you saw the professor, but there's actually academic associations that are taking a stand against Israel. It's pretty significant, including the ASA, the American Sociological Association. They refuse to have Israeli academics participate in their events. Those events were being held at the Westin Hotel in Los Angeles, California. Your ACLJ went to work on that case. I'm happy to report that the ASA allowed Israeli academic participation. It wasn't without a fight. But it was a fight we engaged and a fight we won. I talked about that at the UN.
The American Sociological Association decided to have a meeting at the Westin Hotel in California, in Los Angeles. They decided, however, that because of their support of Palestinian civil society, they would boycott Israeli academic institutions, the ASA said, but they were meeting at the Bonaventure Hotel. Hotels are places of public accommodation. Places of public accommodation don't host groups that harass or discriminate against someone because of their faith, who they are, or what they believe. The ASA was being aggressive. So was I. And the end result of that was that event took place, and as the ASA did not want to acknowledge, but did acknowledge, with Israeli academic participation. But it doesn't stop there. The United Auto Workers local college union, representing 4,000 graduate students, the University of California Student Workers Union, passed an BDS action. We went directly to the United Auto Workers Union, reminding them that they are now violating state and federal law, as is their chapter, because discrimination on the basis of national origin or race or religion is a violation. Not only did we notify the United Auto Workers, their local student workers union, but also the entire University of California system, whose chancellor sent out an email immediately. The provost said, reminding all university chancellors that the policy on course content at the UC system prohibits exactly what the UAW 2865 did. 1 year after 2865, 1 year after that labor union passed that resolution, the entire United Auto Workers passed their own resolution and nullified that BDS boycott. In its decision, the United Auto Workers representative stated that the local chapter had overstepped its parameters, that the resolution would harm UAW-represented workers and other unions, and the provisions of the resolution, despite semantical claims to the contrary by the local union, can easily be construed as academic and cultural discrimination. Here you had the United Auto Workers recognizing a chapter representing 4,000 individuals was violating the laws of the United States and the union's own issues. I told you it's not just Jewish students and Jewish professors. We represent Milan Chaudhry. He's from India. He's Hindu. He stood up against a move by those, he's also the president of the Government Graduate Student Association. The Social Justice for Palestine organization demanded money for funding an event. The GSA's policy was we don't, either side, they don't fund the events. They're not in that business. He was harassed. He was threatened. He received a letter co-signed by the Palestinian Legal Defense Group and the Social Justice for Palestine. They also received a letter from the American Center for Law and Justice, for Stand With Us, from the Brandeis Center, from the Lawfare Project, from the World Jewish Congress, from the Zionist Organization of America. And that letter said, knock it off. You don't get to do that. You don't get to do that in the United States of America. City University in New York, right here, passes a resolution, their doctoral student council, boycotting Israeli academics and institutions. We not only pointed out the federal law and the state law, but also SUNY's own rules and regulations. Again, folks, they wanted to utilize the law in a delegitimate way to delegitimize the state of Israel. We're using the law to support and defend the state of Israel and the Jewish people. Fundamental difference is the law is actually on our side. On May 10th, the Chancellor, President Milken, responded to us in saying, do not worry. They have no teeth and no authority to implement the resolution. SUNY has every intention to continue its long-standing practice of exchanges with international universities, including those in Israel. Folks, friends, there's a website that our coalition partners put together, BDS.com, for the students that are here. As you can tell, you're not alone. Between us and our partners, there are hundreds, I will say thousands, of lawyers here in the United States and around the globe willing to defend, desiring to defend, winning these cases if we fight back. You know, I said we win these cases when we fight back. The truth is, we must win. We have no other option. This is our time, and this is our moment. On behalf of the American Center for Law and Justice, I would like to present to the ambassador, I gave it to him earlier, but I wanted those in the assembly to see it. The signatures of over 110,000 people from 100 countries and territories around the world. I will read this letter. On behalf of more than 110,000, that, by the way, as of this morning is 120,000, people from over 100 nations and territories around the world have signed our petition to defend Israel from anti-Israel attacks across the globe. The American Center for Law and Justice presents these signatures to you, Ambassador, on behalf of our organization, to the people of Israel, but also to you, students, concerned citizens, and distinguished guests. We said in our letter, Israel is under constant deadly terrorist attacks. Jewish students, professors, and Christians who support, and people of other faiths who support Israel, face vicious discrimination. We are fighting back, and we're fighting back with 120,000 other people. Let me close with this. You can't see these. I don't think you can see my cufflinks. Three things I'm wearing of significance for me today. This was my watch my grandmother gave me for my bar mitzvah in 1969. This is the ring Shmuel Sekulow got when he became a U.S. citizen. These cufflinks have in them shells, mortar, and rocket pieces fired from Gaza. Because when Operation Cast Lead took place and we knew there was going to be actions at the ICC, I went with my son, who's also one of our senior lawyers, and a number of other of our team, to the front line. That rocket landed about 75 feet from my son. Fortunately, he was not harmed. But we took pieces of that. Those rocket mortars are with me today as a constant reminder. We're in a struggle for life and death. It is a struggle. We will win. We have no option. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, folks, that's going to do it for the broadcast today. This is part one of a two-part special on Israel and this BDS movement. You played such a significant part in this. In fact, you're going to see in part two how significant that role you all as members of the ACLJ played in this historic moment at the UN General Assembly. So again, I want to thank everybody for participating and appreciated your prayers, appreciated your support allowing us to do this. We are continuing our work on the BDS effort, and that includes going back to the UN and meeting again with the ambassador from Israel to the United Nations. I want to be able to get up to about 200,000 signatures on this petition. We're at about 130,000 now. Would you take a moment and go to aclj.org, or right now call our toll-free number at 1-877-989-2255 and speak out on this issue? aclj.org or 1-877-989-2255. Defend Israel. That's the petition we want you to sign. I'm going to urge you to do that today. aclj.org, 1-877-989-2255. Next week, part two of the special.
It was a tremendous success. ACLJ Chief Counsel Jay Sekulow and our legal and legislative teams standing up for Israel at the United Nations. A very big thank you to the more than 125,000 people who signed on to our petition of support. You made it possible. Now, the real work begins. We laid out our strategy at the UN General Assembly, and now we're working around the globe to counter a vicious anti-Israel campaign designed to delegitimize Israel, to eliminate the state of Israel. You can stand with us during this critical time. Add your name to our petition of support for Israel right now. We will be updating the Israeli ambassador to the UN, keeping him informed about the growing support for Israel. Call now, 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255, or you can add your name online, aclj.org.